Amy, thanks for being here. One of the key issues for your platform is on housing and homelessness. Homelessness is a big issue for all candidates, but how is your approach different?
So I grew up in the Bay Area in the 80s, and there are many failed policies by Governor Reagan from California up to President Reagan. And one of the things that didn't happen in the 80s was this promise of community integrated mental health. It actually started back in the 60s from JFK, and we closed these state institutions, but we didn't figure out how to fund the community integrated mental health. We haven't learned how to deal with addiction issues. And then when Reagan was president, he cut funding for affordable housing development. And so really, my candidacy is this way of putting to bed Ronald Reagan's failed policies, bedtime for Bonzo. And it's time to start living the dream that MLK Jr. told us about. And I truly do believe in a democracy that we're tasked with coming up with the solutions. And so these issues have been plaguing San Francisco since I was a kid and coming to the city back in the 80s. And I really tasked myself with coming up with community integrated solutions that heal at the root and stabilize these multiple crises with actionable solutions. My policy and platform is truly ahead of its time politically, but it's all strategic and able to be implemented. And around the homelessness work, after I ran for mayor in 2015, I started an organization 3 weeks after the election when I got nearly 80,000 first, second, and third place votes. People wanted to see something done with the encampment and shelter shortage crisis. So I started a nonprofit called the St. Francis Homelessness Challenge, and we've actually been researching, developing, and piloting a project that would take the 3,000 to 3,500 people who are currently on our street and transition them into safe, organized spaces on their pathway to healing and housing at the same cost at what we're currently doing to spend on DPW and SFPD just to shuffle homeless people around block by block. We're spending $30 million a year to do that in San Francisco. We could redistribute that money in a way that heals at the root, and it could truly be this revolution of love and logic, because you have to be logical and strategic about how you approach these things. But in San Francisco, the city of St. Francis, we should be, having our values be around compassion. And how is it that we strategically support all boats raising rather than this high tide of inequity right now?
Okay. And on the topic of crime, San Francisco says they need more police officers in their department. Would you hire more police officers, or would you use those funds elsewhere?
So I actually got to ask London Breed a question at a Chinatown debate recently, and my one question to her was, would you consider, instead of putting $34 million into 200 new police officers, that's how much that budget item would be, for 200 new officers, it would be $34 million. Based on data, we could take the 100 highest incident crime and public safety blocks and neighborhoods, and for that same $34 million, we could invest $300,000 into each of those 100 sites and still have $4 million to work with the communities and invest in those communities to heal at the root. Just think about that. If we could actually invest the money in healing on site, you could have that community integrated mental health. You could have crisis de-escalation. It would be a network that was unarmed that worked with the police officers. So we're working smarter and more effectively. We want to put that money into the healing. And that's where my background in direct service work and in working in a variety of nonprofits and harm reduction in mental health and transitional housing, that's where that will really come to serve San Francisco and the region, because I'm coming with that understanding of how we take that money and effectively heal at the root. And what they say, if you put money into prevention, you're going to save in the long run in terms of all of these other impacts. So let's heal it at the root, rather than what are 200 additional officers really going to do in terms of deterring crime.
Is it going to help, though, you think, with crime break-ins, needles on the street? Will those unarmed people that you plan on gathering really help those problems? So
keep in mind that we currently spend $30 million in San Francisco on that move-along strategy for our unsheltered residents of about 3,000 to 3,500. We spend $34 million if we invest in 200 new officers. Okay. So if we have this money to be able to take where people currently are living on the street without access to a toilet, without access to secure sleep and storage, or a place to have privacy to do what they do. So if we create those spaces, then we're going to see a huge reduction in the public health and safety issues on our streets. Okay. And so this idea of investing the money wisely, and our next mayor, one of their big tasks is going to be taking the budget that Mayor Farrell is going to present on June 1st as the proposed budget, and then that mayor will have until the end of July to work with supervisors and stakeholders to make sure we're putting the money in the right places. So all of San Francisco and the Bay Area should be focused on what does this next mayor do. That'll be one of the big first public things that they do that we can measure what the difference is between Mark Farrell's budget and this new mayor's budget.
Okay. As mayor, how would you approach the issue of San Francisco being a sanctuary city? Immigration is a huge topic, especially when we're talking about President Trump and the fact that he wants to withhold funding from San Francisco. Where do you stand on that?
So let's remember that under the Obama administration, there were quite a few deportations that were focused on people who had a criminal background. And so that was happening under Obama, but everybody seemed to be asleep and not focused on it when it was Obama doing it. When Trump is doing it, the reason that I think it's raising so many eyebrows and causing so much fear in communities is that he is going off and not making it about anything to do with criminal backgrounds, although he's presenting it as such. Mm-hmm. It's really, there are people that are coming out of their homes at 5 in the morning and getting taken, to Stockton, to a detention center, without having done anything. And so what we want to make sure that our residents of San Francisco know is that we want to keep families together. We want people to, especially young people whose parents immigrated here, we want them to know that they do belong and to not feel that they're being marginalized or ostracized. We want people to feel safe in that way, and we also want to work with the immigrant community to see where there's truly issues of crime and work together on that, because there are unreasonable people causing harm in any demographic, from people sleeping on the sidewalk to boardrooms to City Hall, in any ethnicity. And so really this revolution of love and logic is saying that we're working together to support well-being and reduce harm and create these reasonable agreements. And as mayor, I want to make it really challenging to be unreasonable. I want to make it so that we're reasonably working towards meeting people's essential needs and letting corporations profit, but in a way that's making sure that the whole economy and our whole ecosystem is in balance.
Okay. Amy Farah Weiss, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.